I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to have you along as well. Happy Juneteenth Day to you, wherever you are around the world. Of course, we celebrate Juneteenth here in the United States, but I have been discovering that Juneteenth is being celebrated by Africans all over throughout the diaspora. We read a story over the week about an organization or a community called Nacimiento in northern central Mexico. And in Nacimiento, it's an Afro community, a community of emancipated or Africans who freed themselves from slavery in in Florida, who connected with the Seminoles, right? And who together were part of the Trail of Tears. People moved from the southeast to Oklahoma, and who also together fled into Mexico to create new communities of Afro-Indian or Afro-Mexican. Nacimiento is that community. They celebrate Juneteenth. It's a major celebration there. And I think that other communities around the diaspora are celebrating Juneteenth as well. So happy Juneteenth to you. It's worth thinking about. We got special editions all this month in Insight News on Juneteenth. We'd love to get your Juneteenth reflections. If you go to an event today, take some pictures, send them to us. You can send them to info@Insight News. And we'd like to present and help preserve some of your observations in our newspaper and or online. Let me also say that our program is sponsored by the One Door to Home Ownership Expo, which is being held this Saturday, June 22nd at 1256 Penn Avenue North. That's the Regional Acceleration Center. We call it the Thor Building. And this event is free, and you can learn all you need to know about the path to home ownership. You learn it in one day going through one door. That's why the conference is called One Door to Home Ownership Expo, the Saturday at the 1256 Penn Building, the Regional Acceleration Center, or the Thor Building as we call it. We've got a great program today, as always, and we love, as I said, for you, no matter where you are, if you're checking us out on YouTube or on Facebook or LinkedIn or X, used to be Twitter. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Let people know, and let us know where you are. Send a note in the comment section, say hello, tell us where you're at. And if you have a Juneteenth recollection or reflection or thought, we'd love to have you share that with us as well. Well, today I'm pleased to have just a number of super guests, people in community who are in leadership to talk about different things. My first guest is Britt Howell. Britt Howell is the creative director and cultural curator at BF50 Indigenous Health Initiative. So I'm going to ask her what that means. She'll unpack that for you. But I can tell you that Britt is a certified Indigenous seed saver. She's a cottage food producer, a plant-based educator, an organic farm lead with the Minneapolis Parks and the Minnesota Farmers Market. She's a profitability coach. She's also facilitated multicultural, intergenerational panel discussions about sustainability, about greener living and access to food in Minneapolis green zones. She curates environmental and food justice gatherings with educational and resource-based organizations with activists and cultural artists. BF50 amplifies health, wellness, and cultural arts in urban communities. So in July of 2023, Britt received a resolution from the city of Minneapolis, a resolution of the mayor and the city council supporting this work. She serves on the board of directors as vice president of the Prospect Park Association. She's a graduate of the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities Center for Urban and Regional Affairs, CURA, Neighborhood Leadership and Organizing Systems Change Program, the University of Minnesota Cottage Food Program, and University of Wisconsin Food Finance Institute, Food Business Model Organization, Food Business Financial Packaging and Financial Resilience Training. She's also a mentor to the University of Minnesota Institute on the Environment and the McAllister environmental studies program where she supports and mentors students. Britt, welcome to the conversation. Good to see you. And it's wonderful to read about you and share your story in the bio. How are you doing? Happy Juneteenth to you.
Happy Juneteenth to you, Al. I feel like my council member, Robin Wansley, that was a whole lot.
Yeah, well,
there was a whole lot going on there, but thank you. Thank you so much for having me and our guests today.
It's a lot and it's necessary. Let me tell you, I'm a member of the Jamaica, Minnesota organization. And one year at our annual meeting, I was called on to introduce one of the speakers, right? And I was conscious of time, and I had a long bio to read. And who else was on the program was my friend and colleague from the Star Tribune, Rohan Preston, right? So I think I was introducing Douglas Ewart. You might know Doug Ewart, the multi-genius artist from our community. And as I was reading it, I'm personally and internally editing and reducing and trying to be conscious of time because it was a long list of things. And so I did that and I said, okay, I'm an editor, that's what I do. And I edited on the spot. Then after I did my piece, I think Rohan later was introducing the main speaker, who might have been a delegate, somebody from the government of Jamaica. But he took his time and read everything. And I since that time, I thought, the stuff he was reading needed to be read. Yes. It needed to be said. So I say that to you, and I said it to Robin. This story that I've told about you in your bio needs to be told. It's necessary. So that. There we go.
I appreciate that.
Kudos to you for having a story to tell.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's good to be here. It's always good to be here. I was talking to the other guests prior to you coming. I said, I could feel a little bit of nervousness. I said, let me explain to you. Al is a conversationalist. Look at this as you're sitting in his living room having a conversation.
Here we go.
And she appreciated it. Immediately, it's like, who's I? It's one of those things where I love being in this space. I love coming here to tell these stories. I just told someone just last week, I told Al I want him to be one of our sponsors, one of our supporters for our other event in August. I said, because I love the work that he does. I said, he's not having interviews just to build a show. He's interested in what we're doing.
That's right.
And that to me really matters. There are often times when someone will say, oh, you should do an interview with this person. And I go, why? Because I need to know that they're interested in the work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And it shows when someone interviews you and they're interested, they're able to tell your story like you tell your story.
That's right.
And that matters to me. And what we're doing here, celebrating our brother, Jim Embry, social activist for over 50 years. And he does his Joy and Justice tour every June, comes here to the Twin Cities and, bless us with his presence. And we try to build up a program. He told me to go ahead and build it up. And I feel that agenda up so fast. He's like, okay, whatever you say, Britt, I'll be there. And I try to fill it up because I want more young people to know the history of our people who are actually out here paving the way for them, right? And so I say all the time that I had a legacy. My parents, they made sure that I understood legacy and what that looked like. And so I try to make sure that I'm always standing in that gap. I try to make sure that I'm doing the work. And I try to show up in spaces where I know that we need to be seen and heard. I don't need to be in all these other spaces. That's why you don't see me. I'm in the spaces I need to be in, right?
That's right.
And so I try to make sure that when I built this agenda for Brother Jim, I wanted to make sure he was in spaces where people could see him. It's one thing to say, oh, he's a social activist. He's a James Beard Foundation Leadership Award. Some people don't even know what that means, right? So I want to make sure that folks understand that and know what it means to be in the presence of someone like Jim Embry. And, and at this point, it's, someone like Al McFarlane. When I say I'm going to be on Insight News, I make sure I say with Al McFarlane, because that's important, right? We need to really pay attention to our leaders and folks who are out here trying to show us something different, show us something more. I celebrate the environment every single day. This is the work that I do. I am celebrating the environment, and I celebrate it differently than some people. I celebrate the environment as it relates to plant-based education, plant-based food. What does it do? When people ask me all the time, well, what does that mean? I'm like, well, your greenhouse gas emissions are lower when you're eating plant-based food. You're mitigating deforestation when you're eating plant-based food. So these are things that people don't, and listen, people don't want to have that conversation. I'm speaking at an event with in their next week, and we got together just the other day to kind of have that conversation. And I said, I know y'all don't want to have this conversation as they were eating their pepperoni pizza. I said, but it's necessary. It's necessary. It is not that you can't have that. It's not that you can't have your portion of meat. That's fine. However, be conscious and cognizant of what you're eating. You can have grass-fed food, right? You can create a day. I do this online on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I do a Meatless Monday with a group of people every Monday, right? So it's just one day at a time, one layer at a time. None of us are perfect. None of us have this right? We're all learning what that means. How do we save the earth? What does that actually mean? And so by doing that every single day of my life and celebrating that, I like to celebrate people like Jim, who also has been doing this much longer than I have, right? And so that's why it was so important when I reached out to you all. It's like, I want to make sure, I want you to see this brother. He's wild, he's off the hook, but he does the work.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's bring him in and introduce him. I've got questions for you, but we'll come back to that because I want to bring in other guests, both Jim Embry and Karyssa Jackson. Karyssa is here representing brother Melvin Giles, who couldn't make it. He was scheduled, but as we were saying before the show, everything always works out the way it's supposed to work out, and this must have been the moment for Karyssa to show up and be Karyssa. So that's what's going to happen in a minute. But let me first, as you're describing Jim Embry, I was looking at the bio that you sent over, and it just grabbed me right away. And so it says that Jim Embry considers himself stardust, condensed in human form.
Yes.
That represents billions of years of Earth's evolution. As an evolutionary being, his purpose is to contribute to a paradigm shift towards sacred Earth consciousness, and he refers to himself as a sacred Earth activist. As an activist, Jim has participated in most of the major social justice movements of his era and now believes that the sustainability movement encompasses all other movements. As founder and director of Sustainable Communities Network, Jim contributes to the theory and practice of sustainable living while cultivating collaborative efforts at the local, national, and international levels with a focus on food systems. Brother Jim, so good to meet you. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane.
My honor, Brother Al. Now, Sister Britt said, you didn't quite walk on water. You didn't part the Red Sea. He was one of the baddest brothers up here doing interviews in the Twin Cities, okay? My honor and blessing to be here and join with you, my Sister Britt and Sister Karyssa. As Sister Britt said, last 3 years I've been on this joy and justice journey in June, the last 3 years, where I've traveled out west, 25 cities, 15 states, 10 or 12 indigenous either reservations or tribal organizations, 20 to 30 urban rural farms, 10 to 12 food co-ops, state parks, federal parks, all about trying to build this movement towards justice. And we call it joy and justice. It's difficult to create justice without a sense of joy. And within our tradition, different songs talked about joy coming in the morning. So that's been my work. I joined the movement, if you will, civil rights movement as a 10-year-old in 1959.
What town? Where were you?
President of CORE. Okay.
Where? What city were you in?
And demonstrations as a 10-year-old, got spit on, got cussed out. Didn't quite get beat up. Okay, fortunately. Marched with Dr. King in 64 to March on Frankfurt. Worked with Ernie Green, A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, my friends Grace and Jimmy Boggs, Danny Glover, a whole host of people over the years. And it's and on my journey throughout the West, those 25 cities, I always save the best cities for last. That's the Twin Cities. I just love my brother Melvin Giles. We hooked up years ago, working with Will Allen and the Growing Power Urban Ag organization. And then I came through 3 years ago to Twin Cities, met Britt, and we had this long discussion one night to the wee hours of the night. The moon was coming up, the stars were coming up. She said, if you come here again, sister got your back. I will help organize things. So it's an honor for me to be here again. And brother Al, I've heard a lot of things about you. We love you so much, and thank you for having us on this program.
Well, thank you. The feeling is mutual. I love what you say and what you represent. I love the story, and I think it's so important to tell the story. When you introduce yourself as Stardust, it just opens my mind up to, my sense of myself as part of the cosmos and part of the infinite and the eternal. I use the phrase sometimes that suggests that we shift our focus, shift the paradigm to think about both before the beginning and think about after the end. Mm-hmm. The beginning and the end are things that are at some level defined. We have to move beyond existing definition and assume the responsibility, the right, the sovereign task of defining that which is undefined and differently. And for that reason, I say, what if we contemplate what existed before existence? What if we contemplate and design what happens after the end? Then we'll begin to be our true selves.
Amen.
In the sense of understanding our role as being part of the will and the work of creation and the creator.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
what you're describing, matter of fact, if we use one of Dr. King's quotes, he talked about the moral arc of the universe mm-hmm. bends towards justice. He didn't say the moral arc of Memphis, where he was, because we know, killed there in Memphis, or Atlanta, mm-hmm. in cities. He talked about the universe. Mm-hmm. George Washington Carver, one of his quotes is, when I look at a flower, I can see infinity. Ah. Okay. So yes, our work as a human species, so we're like the youngest species on the earth. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Other folks, trees, rivers, mountains, animals know who they are. Mm-hmm. And we're still maturing as a species, mm-hmm. trying to figure out what it means to be human. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we're saying, what we're defining, this paradigm shift, humans means to love all the people, mm-hmm. the human people, the animal people, the mm-hmm. plant people, the mm-hmm. air people, the water people, the rock people, okay? Yep. They're all our kinfolk, okay?
That's right, that's right.
And our work is to move through this period of metamorphosis, mm-hmm. move through this period of maturation, much like a butterfly moving from a caterpillar stage, that's where we are as humans, eating mm-hmm. up things, pooping everywhere, making messes. But we're in this period of the crystal stage of transition to become a butterfly, where we can fly all over the world and be like-minded. The idea of Ma'at says, when you come to that point of making a transition, is your heart heavy, mm-hmm. or is your heart as light as a feather? Uh-huh. So our work is to be a species with heart as light as a feather.
Let me share a book with you that you may know, you may not know it, but I'll share it for you and other people as well. The book is entitled The Three Books of Khepra, or a Khepran Knowledge Philosophy. The Three Books of Khepra, a Khepran Knowledge Philosophy, and it's by Seba Ahmad Azahir, who is the creator of the International Khepran Institute. And I bring it up because he talks, as you are speaking now, about this idea, the ideation of the beginning and the interrelatedness of all of us, and arriving at a point of knowledge and consciousness where we seamlessly understand our connectedness to everything else that exists. And it changes our relationship with time. So the moment that we are in, we understand is completely filled by and with all that ever existed. and that this moment also, in its own nature, contains everything that ever will be.
Yes.
This is the moment of infinity. This is the moment that counts. And if we can live in this moment and do the work of the moment, we in fact are doing the work of the future by examining and being and thinking about and weighing everything that has happened up to this point. We are the gateway.
Yes. Yes.
This moment is the gateway.
Absolutely.
So that's my thought.
We all agree. And back to Sister Britt's point, that higher level of consciousness, we're saying the body is a temple. All due respect to spiritual systems that have a mosque, a church, a synagogue that humans have made. Okay, they're holy.
Yeah.
But the body is a temple that is the most holy. What we put into it can take us to this higher level of consciousness. And I met Brother Dick Gregory, many years ago, me on to fasting. Okay. Fasting is part of that idea of this sense of reaching the seventh chakra, the third eye, spiritual enlightenment. And we're meant to live as a species at that level. And right now, part of our work is to be in this transition period.
Let's talk about food right now and the food work that you and Britt are doing here locally. And let's bring Karyssa in as well,
Yes,
just to talk about. Karyssa, let me have you join first. Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the conversation. And for our viewers and listeners, Karyssa Jackson has been a member of the Community Peace Celebration Planning Team for the past 8 years. And she's joining that as a St. Paul neighbor and part of her role as a community engagement professional in transportation. So Karyssa, welcome and thank you for being here. Give a minute or a moment about the celebration, first of all, so we know what that is, and we'll come back to explaining the whys.
Most definitely. The Community Peace Celebration is in its 28th year. This celebration was founded as a part of neighbors' response to a really tragic loss of a young life in 1996, and in the effort to find ways to heal and to deal with that, they had identified the peace pole as a symbol that could travel around. I think it was 30 neighborhood sites that the peace pole traveled around in that year. And as a part of that, they created this opportunity to celebrate, to come together as neighbors, to share music, to share love, to have leadership, give some encouragement and motivation. And we have continued in that spirit, in that tradition. That celebration has grown now into a regular annual, almost festival of sorts, where we have some awesome artists that are coming, some phenomenal organizations are coming to bring great resource to community. We are going to have our keynote by Elder Jim Embry to bring light and love and the joy and justice journey to that event. And we'll also just have the convening of all of our neighbors. There's a lot of love in the celebration, and we're really excited about it. It's this Friday on June 21st.
Awesome. Excellent. And where's it going to be?
It is at the Western Sculpture Park in St. Paul. If you know the city, right across from the old Sears complex or Sears building near the Capitol. And we are aware of some of the weather forecasts. And so we do ask that you check back at communitypeacecelebration.org. You can also check our social media pages to keep updated as we are looking for alternatives, but we're trying to dance the sunshine into the Friday event.
So how does the celebration interact with Juneteenth? This being Juneteenth week, day today.
Traditionally, the celebration has been the third Friday of every June. And as I shared before, this celebration is really focused in on trying to identify ways to disrupt the cycles of violence. And much of that is about disrupting the cycles of racial discrimination, of lack, And so focusing on healthy food, youth empowerment, really looking at focusing on economic opportunity and economic empowerment within our communities is very much the value of the celebration. And I think that's so much a part of how what we should be looking at in terms of Black liberation and the tradition of Juneteenth.
Let me shout out Lupe Castillo, who wrote as she listened that intergenerational leadership provides guidance and healing and strengthens communities. She goes on to say, thank you, Brother Al, Sister Britt, Elder Jim. Looking forward to this week's Joy and Justice Journey 2024. And she says, thank you, Karyssa, for your work and your gifts to the community. Lupe, we thank you for making the comment, taking the time to share that spirit, share the love, and we appreciate you. And I say to other people that are listening or viewing from anywhere in the world, we want to hear from you as well. Drop a note in the comment section and let people know what's on your mind today. We want to connect with you. Thank you, Karyssa. So Britt, let me come back to just talking about food and food justice and the work that you're on. Let me ask you to sort of walk us through your development as a young person. What puts you on the path to healthy living? What inspired you to create the kinds of events that you do that highlight health and wellness, as well as cultural arts, cultural movements? So, and then all that to say, give some more information about what BF50 stands for, what it means, and what the vision and the work are.
I love that question so much. So I come from a family, West Indian family and a Native American family. Growing up, my parents, my dad was in World War II.
West Indian, which West Indian community?
Bajan and Jamaican.
Okay.
My dad was in World War II. My parents were married for over 30 years. They were separated and they had a family. They had children who were already 20 years old and they got back together and voila, here I come. So I was born very late in life to my parents. And by the time I was born, my parents were both plagued, both sides of our family, diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, all of that. So I grew up in a home with folks taking insulin every single day, to the point by the time I was in the 3rd grade, I was given insulin. I was like a little nurse. I was going around giving it to my mother and my grandmother. I was actually giving them insulin. I was born diabetic myself. And somehow, somewhere around 9 or 10, I can never really remember which age, I came home and said, you know what? I'm not going to eat meat anymore. I had seen some kind of film or something, and they said, my mother's from West Virginia. My dad was raised in New York. My mom said, good luck with that. In West Virginia, you're not going to eat meat anymore. However, the bottom line is I didn't. I stuck to it. And then once they realized that, and so my family is spread it throughout the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, which is what I claim and which is where I spent most of my time. And so I spent school years in West Virginia. Every summer I'm in the cities. I mean, and so my mom said, she's serious. Do not put any meat in her vegetables or food. She will be able to detect it. And I wouldn't know. I can smell it. And so I just to start living this life, veganism, vegetarianism. And when I moved to Maryland, I mean, who doesn't eat seafood when you go to Maryland? So I became a pescatarian because you just had to do that. But of course, reverted right back to my vegan lifestyle. And so my sister at 50 years old, she was 49 at the time, the doctor said, she had to lose weight to have a particular surgery. And finally, she respected me enough to go to her baby sister and say, listen, I need you to write me a plan because I studied fitness and nutrition. I need you to write me a plan in order for me to have this surgery. So I wrote this plan for my sister. It was very personal. And so when I tell people my organization is intentional and it's like everything I do about it has intentionality written behind it. So the Britt Fit program, it was called Britt Fit program. That was all it was. It was called the Britt Fit program. My sister at 50 was able to have the surgery. She lost enough weight on my program, but of course, she passed away. She never made it out of the hospital. She was 50 years old. My sister prior to her was thin as a rail, diabetic, had to have her foot amputated, passed away at 50 years old. Her
Wow.
children passed away at 49 and 50 years old.
Whoa.
So 50 became synonymous for me. So I turned Britt Fit 50 into an acronym of BF, added the 50, and my life work has been helping folks over 50, predominantly women over 50, with their diets. And I don't try to make everyone vegetarian or vegan, but I do try to help them cut down on their cholesterol and start to eat in a pattern, in a way that says, I care about myself and I care about my body. And I tell people, when I'm talking to you about food, I'm just telling you to care enough about yourself to eat well. That's really what I'm telling you to do. Just care enough about yourself to eat well. And so that's how Britt Fit 50, now BF 50, came along. And Indigenous health is because I'm Indigenous and we're talking about health.
Sure.
So so we started curating events, and we curate the events with a lot of culture, music. Lupe Castillo, who's on here today, I am her drummer. I drum behind her poetry. She's a City of Minneapolis Arts Grant recipient. She's a poet. And so we created this book. I think, Al, you've seen it before. We created this book with Michael Chaney on the Green Northside Green. Lupe Castillo is actually in this book. Her poems are in this book as well. And so we do everything around health and wellness because we want to bring culture in there. We have Aztec dancers, we have rain dancers, native drums. Me as a drummer, I come from a long history of family of drummers. And so we try to, that's the part where we bring you in, right? We get you interested in all the music, but while you're there, I'm going to teach you a little bit about saving some seeds and growing your own food. That's always going to be at the heart of the story of what I do. And I do that because I say this all the time. I live by Maya Angelou. When I was a Maya Angelou lover before it was a big deal, like before people even knew her, I was reading her books as a young girl. And I really believe when we know better, we do better. And I honor Dr. Maya Angelou with that. And I start my speeches off that way. So I figure if I'm teaching you and giving you all this history about growing your own seeds, and not just any seed, but organic seeds, and growing your own food. If you are growing your food, you're cooking your food, you're taking care of yourself.
That's right.
There's no chemicals in there because you just did that yourself. And it's an honor to do that yourself. And I tell the story of a couple of years back, Lupe and I we wanted to be the first to get the COVID shot. We were, let's go get this thing so we can get out here and get to work. And so I don't know if you're all familiar with Sister Sledge. So Kathy Sledge had me on her show just talking about my food and spreading the word to people on Instagram. And in the midst of all of that, I go take the shot. And literally the words from the doctor is, I made it just in enough time. I took that shot and it wiped me out. Next thing I know, I am literally on deathbed. I've always controlled my insulin, everything. All my diabetes has been controlled by food. Next thing I know, they're giving me insulin. And I was like, this is not me and I'm not going to be this. They couldn't resolve it. And they didn't have enough information at the time to really know how to tell their patients about the shot versus high blood pressure and diabetes, things that's living dormant in your body. They just didn't know. It wasn't any trickery. They just didn't know. I put Lupe on FaceTime in the hospital so the nurses and doctors could see what she was doing. I have something online called BF 50 beverages. I had her to make a beverage, bring it over to the hospital. I drank the beverage. In the middle of the night, my blood sugar fell to 66. The next day I was out of the hospital.
Wow.
So you cannot tell me what my food can do. You cannot tell me nothing. I know what I create is amazing. And I know that it works. And we have proof because she did that right on camera in front of everyone. The nurses was like, what's in there? And my doctor, Dr. Raker, took her pen and said, give me that recipe.
Your doctor is Sharmista Raker?
Yes.
That's my doctor too.
Ask Dr. Raker.
I will ask her. I talk to her all the time.
She wrote that recipe down. And you know what I loved? This is why I tell people it's important. It's important to go to doctors and teachers and educators, people who look like you. I'm sorry, it matters. The minute I start giving her the recipe, she goes, yes, we do that in my country. Yes, that makes sense. She got it. She understood, oh, fresh ginger. Oh, fresh turmeric is in here. Oh, it made total sense to her. Now, if I don't know that would make sense to every doctor.
Right.
but I got up out of that hospital real quick. And so and I was there in ICU for 5 days after taking the shot. So my point is, I know what this food does. I did it for my sister. She was been waiting to have that surgery for months. The minute she went on my program, she was able to have that surgery. I did it for myself. I did it for my family. I do it for the community now. And anyone who will listen and take the time to not be afraid of eating healthy, it's not what you think. People are so afraid when you say vegan or vegetarian. It's not really what you think. Don't forget, at the end of the day, I have West Indian culture in my body. I have Native American. I'm cooking some good food here. Last year, I cooked for Jim. So we had an event for Jim, and Jim goes to, we're at Sean Sherman's restaurant at Owamni, and Jim gets up at the table. He goes, "This girl is a bad mama jama." And he starts telling Sean, and I was like, Sean knows, because I actually went to school under Sean as well. But that is my point. My point is, I know that, we were here with you, Al, a month ago now. And when Big Green was saying, growing food changes lives, that's just real. That's a real thing. It does change your life. When you eat well, you eat better, you know better, so do better. That's just real simple for me. And in terms of the culture, the music, the drumming, all of my brothers are drummers. They've all traveled the world playing behind some of the largest stars you can imagine. And I'm going to give you guys a really beautiful note. I'm going to sign off on this, and you guys are going to be tickled, but it's a reality. And you can go pull it up on Oprah. My brother, Britt Howell, is the real singer behind Milli Vanilli, and drummer, and he's a percussionist.
Okay.
Google that. Google Britt Howell, Milli Vanilli, and you'll see that is my brother. He lives in Germany. He's been
Cooper, Google that. And let's bring it up while we're on the show. And
Google that.
I put a note in the chat while we were talking to ask you to send Lupe's email address to Cooper so we can invite her into the program. I'd love to have her on this conversation as well. So Lupe, if you're listening, look out for a link. And if you are willing and able, we'd love to have you on. Maybe you could do some poetry.
I recommended her on the paper the last time we were on. I put in her name and recommended her, and Sina War and Lupe Castillo are two of my sheroes. I would love for you to bring them onto the show.
Okay.
Sina War is the cultural engagement for Minnesota Farmers Market Association. You've probably seen her a ton of times on she's usually on Channel 5 promoting farmers market, but and Lupe Castillo, of course, a bad mama jama. Jim knows Lupe very well as well.
That's right.
Jim, tell your story if you would. You mentioned that you were an activist at the age of what, 6 or 7 or 8 years old. Where are you from? Where were you born? And talk about your lineage.
Well, let me say this right here. I got the James Beard Award last June, and in my acceptance speech, I says, "It's not about me, it's about we." And we means I come from a long line of members of the family who I regard as agrarian, intellectual activists. We were brought to Kentucky, where I live now, near Madison County, around the year 1800, across the Appalachian Mountains, out of Virginia, largely out of Nigeria, and part of the Igbo people. So we claim land stewardship where I live now, this whole community, since 1800. Not just when we bought the land in 1890 from those who stole the land. That's my legacy, is people who are always fighting for freedom, always wanting to be liberated, always wanted to be out of the shackles of enslavement. Okay, and during those years of enslavement, my people tried to escape, tried to resist. Speaking of Juneteenth, Brother Al, I had 3 great-grandfathers that were part of the U.S. colored troops who mustered in Kentucky. 2 of those great-grandfathers, okay, my mom's side and my dad's side, they were in Virginia, helped surround Lee, kicked Lee's butt in Virginia, and they were there outside of the courthouse at Appomattox when Grant accepted Lee's surrender. And then those same troops, 16,000, okay, U.S. colored troops, Black troops, were then sent from Virginia to Galveston in May of 1865,
Mm.
a month before Granger got there.
Mm-hmm.
During Juneteenth, we celebrate General Granger, him coming in there on June 19th, reading his General Order number 3,
Mm-hmm.
like he began Juneteenth. But around May 10th, 16,000 Black troops got off the boat at Galveston and marched into Galveston. You can imagine, Brother Al,
16,000 armed Black
what
men.
the hell was going on? What the hell was going on?
Yeah,
Black folk were shouting, hallelujah, praise God, we are
That's
free.
that's right.
So my point is that Juneteenth was ushered in not by General Granger.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fight wars.
Mhm.
It was ushered in by these 16,000 Black troops.
That's right.
As we know as well, in 1863, the North was losing the war.
Mm-hmm.
Lee was out strategizing General Grant. The South was winning. Then President Lincoln said to Frederick Douglass and Martin Delany and Harriet Tubman, okay, y'all have been saying, let Black folk fight, but now I'm saying, look here, we need y'all's help. So 200,000 out, 200,000 Black men and Black women mustered in to the Civil War and helped turn the tide, okay, and won the war. So what we're saying, the Civil War following, because the Civil War was also inspired by the Haitian Revolution, okay, in the 1780s and 1790s, 1800, Toussaint Louverture inspired Denmark Vesey. He inspired, all these different kind of rebellions. And also, we're saying the Haitian Revolution also inspired the Civil War to come into being. And what happened then was these folks who fought in the Civil War, who were Black troops, they were farmers. When they mustered in, they wrote down what they were, and they were farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So I call the Civil War the legalized, armed rebellion of Black farmers.
Ah,
And so I regard Juneteenth not just as Emancipation Day, Jubilee Day, but it's Reunification Day, because we have two separate countries. When Lincoln issued the Proclamation of Emancipation, 1863, it didn't free anybody because it didn't impact the South. Those were two separate countries.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so what we're saying is we should lift up Juneteenth as emancipation and reunification. If the South had won the war, the world would be entirely different. There would be no UN. We would be like South Korea, North Korea. So we're saying that Black folk, 200,000 Black men and women, fought in the war, turned the tide, okay, defeated the South, the Confederacy, and the country then was reunited. And then some 30 years or 40 years after that, one of the children of these enslaved people, George Washington Carver, when the Southern agriculture was collapsing because of the overuse of cotton and one crop, the South was collapsing agriculturally.
Mm-hmm.
Carver comes in with different kinds of ways of thinking, of planting peanuts and soybeans and beans and legumes and sweet potatoes. He literally, once again, saved the South. So today we're celebrating Juneteenth. What we're saying is that Black folk today have a responsibility of giving vision, giving a different way of thinking to the nation,
Mm-hmm.
to take us out of this rollback of all the DEI gains and all the progressive gains of women. It is our role, okay, as a people to give vision, to give leadership, the same way our folks, George Washington Carver gave vision, saved the nation during the Civil War. 200,000 Black men and women came in, saved the country. So our role today is to give leadership to this movement of moving our country to a very different kind of a reality where we're not fighting wars everywhere, all over the world, that we're spending money on the needs of people. The Black Panther Party talked about serving the people, power to the people. So part of the work here this week with the gardens, okay, the peace celebration, and the various things we're going to be doing all week long with the canoe trip is about power to the people. How do we give people the power to transform their lives individually, transform their lives collectively? That's the work, is power to the people. That's part of my history. Again, I've I've been in the movement since I was 10 years old. I've been a part of all the social movements, and I do work at the local level in Kentucky on my farm. I'm a beekeeper, the whole community there. I'm involved in things nationally as well as internationally. And one day, Brother Al, even intergalactically, I'm working with Ohio State with my dear friend Jennifer Bailey on our systems transformation partnership with Ohio State. And we're working with them on this creation of this new space station that have on the space station this science lab named for George Washington Carver, where they're going up in the space lab, sweet potatoes, trying to grow plants in zero gravity, trying to grow seeds to go where? To go to Mars. So I'm saying that part of our work is going to be intergalactic as well.
Oh man. Well, I'm loving this. I'm loving it. And at the one level, it means returning to where we came from, right? Because we came from again a place before the beginning happened, and everything seeks to find its home.
Yes.
That's what I think anyway. So listen. I think, did we get a chance to get Lupe on board or not? We're going to send the link to her. She said she'd be glad to join. So when she does, we'll bring her in. Karyssa, let me have you just jump in, just weigh in as we're talking. What are your feelings? What are your thoughts? Connect this and build on it.
First, it's such an honor to hear from Elder Jim Embry, the wealth of knowledge. I had an opportunity to speak with him just a couple of days ago. And I truly am honored to be amongst Elder Melvin Giles, who I am here actually instead of. He was not able to join, but he is the founder and motivating force for the Community Peace Celebration. And I think, as a young person, I really hope to carry that torch and that spirit around justice, around the opportunity to share knowledge, as Ms. Britt was speaking about, like, how do we continue to take the knowledge that we have and share it, and how can I kind of be a recorder of sorts to house some of the knowledge that I'm learning from you all, to be able to share with folks that I know in the community, to continue that on. Really excited about that opportunity. It's part of the reason why I've continued to be a part of the Community Peace Celebration for this time. And that being an all volunteer effort, an effort that is really grassroots, that folks just come to. I think that power in community, that ability for community members to come together for active change is so much shown, it's displayed in what we see in the Peace Celebration. That opportunity for young people to take leadership is in that space. And so I think that's really exciting to be a part of that movement.
Britt, did you check on Lupe? Did she get the message? Can you give her a call maybe to see if she got the link? Because we'd love to have her in. This time is going so quickly.
I know it's going so fast. I just text her. I know she's working and sneaking and listening to us. So I did text her, and I think she's going to try. Cooper sent her the information, so hopefully she'll pop up here today. I would love for you all to hear. But
awesome.
I do want to get us on track, guys. I do want to remind us, so we can remind everyone that. So one of the first things that Jim and I will be doing, we're going to be at Soul of the South Side this afternoon. So just stop through there. We'll be walking the streets. I didn't tell Jim, but Jim doesn't matter. He's active. He's ready to go at all time. And so to honor Miss Opal Lee, whose family was ran out of their home on June 18th, she's 94 and she's going out walking today so I am going to have Jim and Lupe walking with me 2.5 miles today. And I'm asking everyone else in honor of Opal today and just walk 2.5 miles if you can. We will be at Soul South
where do you start? And
one of the things that we're doing.
Where do you start and what time today?
Here we're going to hike down there. We're going to be there probably by 2:30, 3 o'clock, hopefully. Okay. And one of the things that we're doing too, I got us tickets. We're going to celebrate Miss Rose McGee's Kumbaya. We will be there Friday morning. So we are really trying to celebrate Juneteenth in Jim's journey. We were trying to make sure that we are in it. So we'll be at the Kumbaya at the play, and we love Miss Rose Lupe, and I do some work over with Minnesota Humanities Center, and they've honored both grand point in our with our work, and so we want to make sure we're there. And then of course we have the Peace Garden, and we will do a bridal tour. So that's where I garden lead this park. We're going to tour people through Bridalveil. Jim and I have fantastic seeds, organic seeds, and in seeds we'll be doing a seed exchange, and then after that we're going to have dinner. So we have a full
We're getting some degrading in the sound. I don't know if it's happening to you, but I'm losing some of it.
Can
Yeah,
you
I think what Britt,
hear?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, because we were losing Jim earlier, and I was like, "What's going on?"
yeah, I think what Britt was saying was that
I don't think.
we're the June 21st, 2 to 6, we're having the community peace celebration. Okay, and last year these folks put up this 15-foot tall peace pole with a light on top of it. Folks is gangster, okay, up in there. And then we're Saturday at June 22nd, we're doing the Greenway Slow Road for Sickle Cell. There in the Greenway area. And then we got again, we're doing this canoe trip June 23rd in the morning, 9 a.m. I think we have a QR code. Folks can join us on the lake. An incredible canoe trip where we're going to focus around Indigenous culture on the lake, in the river, things of that nature. And then she mentioned that evening, June 23rd, 6 p.m., join us for dinner. Everyone can come, 6 p.m. at the markets at Malcolm Yards. Please come out and join us there. And it's just going to be an incredible week of activities. Feel free to call us. And I would again say that part of the idea of food as an intersect, when I'm speaking, I always go back to this country's founding, our nation's founding. It was founded upon stolen land from Indigenous people to do what? To do agriculture and foodways. The other contradiction was stolen labor from African people to do what? To do agriculture and foodways. So what we're saying is that agriculture and food represent the foundational contradiction of our nation. All the other injustices that we have as a nation were based upon, again, stolen land and stolen labor. They're joined at the hip. We're also saying in every aspect of food and agriculture, it also represents the fulcrum point of change, of transformation, of revolution. My dear friend out west, the gangster gardener, says that growing food is like growing money. It's like printing money on a vine, okay? It says gardening right now in this century, in this year, is the most radical thing we can do. The most radical thing we can do that can be revolutionary is everyone should grow something. Everybody should compost something, okay? Because agriculture is the foundation of human culture.
Food
I just want
and
to point
land.
out that.
And so, go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Go.
I just want to point out that the person I mentioned earlier, Sina War, is also in the comments. I just wanted to point that out to you, Al. So
Okay.
both of my sheroes are right here.
Well, thanks to both of them. I'm still hoping that Lupe can jump on the call if she gets a minute to. Yeah, but I was just focusing on your words, Brother Jim, about food and land, and the theft of land, the theft of labor to create food out of the land. And my wife and I were talking about how we have been so hobbled or constrained or brainwashed. So you think about the so-called founding fathers, right? And we talk about the ideal and the principles of democracy, but these were men who were concerned about the theft of land, and who also were practitioners of the theft of labor as
Yes.
official policy in the founding. So this was a criminal enterprise,
Yes.
and we are afraid to call it that.
Yes. Yes.
But at some point in time, we've got to name it.
Yeah. And what happened back then wasn't about democracy at all. It wasn't about democracy. It was about the continuation of the theft of land. Matter of fact, the genocide towards indigenous people, some 90% people who are indigenous are gone.
Mm.
It's also about the continuation of African enslavement,
Mhm.
the oppression of women. If it was about democracy, then women would have had the right to vote.
Mhm.
Black folk would have been free,
Mhm.
and we'd have stopped stealing the land if it was about
That's right.
democracy. The first democratic revolution was the Civil War. When Black folk came in there, Black men and women came in there, helped win the war. If you recall, in those early years, it was our people who brought in public education,
Mhm.
who brought in all kinds of changes in the role of women. That was about democracy.
Mhm.
Okay, what Washington and Jefferson did, again, because they'd heard about England outlawing African enslavement. They heard about England not wanting to encroach anymore on indigenous territory. Says, wow, they're going to do that? Then we ought to fight, okay, so we can continue manifest. And you're right, we should stop calling that revolution anything to do with democracy at all. It wasn't at all about democracy. We're the people who brought in democracy, okay?
That's right.
We're the
That's right.
ones. Anyway.
Karyssa, let me give you a couple of minutes here to remind people about what's going on and make the invitation. Maybe we can put your flyer up again.
That would be awesome. I wanted to just make sure that folks knew that there are still opportunities for you to not just be an attendee, but also a participant in the Community Peace Celebration. We are still hoping for volunteers, so you can go to that website I mentioned earlier, communitypeacecelebration.org. We also, this is, as I shared, completely grassroots. So we have these incredible artists that are going to be joining us, folks who are native to St. Paul, but all over globally, and really want to be able to provide a love gift to these folks. So if you have the opportunity to provide a love gift yourself to support the Community Peace Celebration, we would love that. But we want to see your faces. We want to bring that joy. And of course, please do check our website for updates. In case we do see some raindrops that day, we are going to have an alternative plan in place. But it would be a blessing to see all of you there.
Jim and Brett, in the next 2 minutes, I ask you to take a 1 minute each and talk about the future. Focus on, this is what, 2024? Describe 21-24, Jim.
Yes, let me say this right here, Al, that we developed, my friend of mine, a partner, Jennifer Bailey, have described the pathway to the future. It's about being sustainable and just. It has 6 pathways. First is earth-centric, woman-centric. Second is indigenous wisdom. Third is George Washington Carver and the African-American ethos. The fourth one is youth, art, and hip-hop. The fourth one is seeds in the Terra Madre, Mother Earth. The last one is vision that is transformative. Those 6 pathways, we're saying, have to be a part of our future vision.
Britt, your thoughts?
I agree. Sustainability and greener living, and taking care of our youth, teaching them so they can teach their children and their children's children. And Lupe and I have a pathway of how we're going to get in these indigenous seeds, indigenous food, indigenous knowledge to our children and our children's children.
Well, let me say, if you guys are available like Friday at 1 o'clock, we do the Friday version of this show is called The Healing Circle. And if you're available, maybe Lupe could jump on, or your other colleague that you mentioned, I think.
Sina Water.
Yeah, I'd love to have them on and you to talk about the same, keep the conversation going. But
Al,
listen, this
Lupe's,
is, go ahead.
Lupe's concept, Lupe's grant is healing, Heart Speaks Healing Circles. So that's perfect.
Perfect. Okay, well, we call it The Healing Circle every Friday at 1 o'clock. And let's see if we can get you guys on board this Friday to continue this conversation. And really, it's not about just today and this Friday. How do we continue being together forever? That's what this is about, is how do we learn to be with each other all the time over a long, long period of time.
Yes.
And by a long period of time, I mean not just me and you, but I mean your children and my children, their children and their children, their children and their children, ad infinitum, beyond the end. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Love y'all. Love y'all. Love y'all.